another installment of Technology in a Tent. Today, truly a special treat. We have the two main YouNoodlers, co-founders Torsten and Rebecca from YouNoodle. Thanks for making it out to the show. I know you guys don't do this a lot, so we're going to take advantage of you guys both being at the same time and really make this fun. So introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you're from, what you're doing, and then we'll talk a little about YouNoodle, Podium, what we're doing and how we can connect the dots. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting. Ladies first. My name is Rebecca Hwang, and I'm one of the founders and CEO of YouNoodle. And my background is that I was born in Korea, raised in Argentina, came to the U.S. to study engineering. I went to MIT for undergraduate and master's, and then Stanford for my PhD. And in that process, I bumped into entrepreneurship, and I was dragged out of my PhD program that I took a leave of absence for, and ended up co-founding YouNoodle a few years back.
And I'm Torsten Kolind. I'm the CTO, so I do all the nerdy stuff, build the product and so forth. And on my entrepreneurial journey to San Francisco, I came from my native Denmark through London, Dallas, Texas, Chile, and finally I'm here, and I've been here for 4 years. Very exciting.
So you're both technical. I think he's the back end of the front.
Yeah. Software and...
I'm a chemical engineer.
Chemical engineer.
Yes.
Okay, all right, cool. All right, so, it seems like everybody on the show is from somewhere else. I'm German and Iranian, but how did this happen? Like, how does a Danish guy bump into a Korean girl in Silicon Valley and build such an amazing company?
Happens every day.
Exactly. Totally. That's the truth,
Well, we do have actually a good story on how we met, and I think it's a very good one in terms of the types of complementarity that you should look for in a co-founding team. I was part of YouNoodle in an earlier version of it in 2007. And as part of my role, I was in charge of outreach and getting people to use our platform to become ambassadors and evangelists for what we're doing. And in the process, I met with Torsten at a conference. This was a conference organized by MIT in Norway and in many other places. So we really bumped into each other. We got to meet each other by being young organizers of competitions at a conference, kept in touch. And when I was pushing for YouNoodle's platform to be used by organizers, I contacted Torsten. And I have to admit, he was one of the difficult clients that you can find in the early
That's not, you're easygoing. Why are we
but I don't buy anything,
Okay, fair enough.
He was very receptive, a great person to bounce ideas with, but when it came to the actual closing of the agreement, he would have a lot of reasons why our platform was not ready. And the thing that bothered me the most was that he was right. He was absolutely right on every point of those.
Well, as long as you can have that person on your team and then help actually build a better version, it's a win-win. So really quickly, I want to ask, while you're there, was YouNoodle originally wasn't what it is today, right? You've done pivots or iterations. Tell us, what the original idea was, and now obviously you've built this big business, what it is, now what it's become now.
Yeah, YouNoodle was actually a spin-out of another company that's today called Quid. And we were both at that previous company, and that's how I made my way over to San Francisco. And that company was, and today is looking at data analytics for the startup world. So trying to understand, visualize what is all the technology and new developments going on in the startup world. And we were so excited about this side project called YouNoodle, which was a network of young entrepreneurs everywhere in the world, that we decided to actually take that out and start a new company called YouNoodle and build around that. And today we really specialize in the selection of those entrepreneurs. So wherever they are in the world, let's bring a bit of meritocracy in and find who are the ones that really should be lifted up and brought forward in the world.
And so now you guys do, accelerator programs, you incubate companies, you have mentorship programs. I've judged a couple of competitions. You guys are doing a bunch of stuff. And then on top of that, your platform is being used by everybody and their mom, right? Name some of the companies who are using your platform.
We have Startup Chile, we have NASA, we have Intel, Microsoft, Amazon, many of those blue chip companies, and 7 out of the top 10 schools, as ranked by Reuters in the world, are also using our platform to manage their entrepreneurship programs.
So basically the platform now is basically a plug and play way to hold competitions and judge and filter and then have a virtual way to collect this data, correct? I mean,
it's selection. That's what it's all about. Sometimes it's a competition, it's a prize being given away, but it could also be an accelerator that are looking at how can we get the right folks to get into the program. It could be grants that governments are giving out to young entrepreneurs. So anything that has this funnel of a lot of people want to get in and only a few will actually get it. That's what we're specialized in the software.
But I want to make sure that it's not just about the technology.
Sure.
We are a one-stop solution for brands and organizations to engage with communities of startups.
Yeah.
So we make that engagement to be meaningful and productive through our campaigns and products.
Yeah, so I mean, Startup Chile to me is one of the best examples if you really think about it. With that Startup Chile program, they really went from zero to ecosystem in a couple of years with really no money, if you really think about it. I remember Diego showed up here a few years ago, and he's like, oh, I have $1 million to give away to 25 companies. And then next year he's like, we're doing 100 companies. And then I think last year was it 400? Or Elsa was managing.
Right now it's 1,000 over 3 years.
Wow!
And they're giving $40,000 to each of them. So it's a pretty for a government program. Out of South America, it's a very ambitious program.
But here's the thing. So if you get picked, you end up kind of doing community service or mentorship to companies there. You hire people. You spend the money there. But I know 4 or 5, maybe 7 people who've gone, built cool products from less money. It was a great experience. And now all of a sudden they're like kind of hot and they saved a bunch of money and it was a cool experience. I mean, if I was younger and not married and was building a company, I would love to do something like that, So, but Chile, now Colombia as well, I think Singapore, these ecosystems, these countries, they understand, like, the governments understand what to do to support entrepreneurship, and so I know you guys play a big role in that, and so that's super cool. So, let's assume that, we've talked about this obviously, that we're going to run a competition. It's not a competition really, so it's 2 parts. We're going to run an Indiegogo campaign that's going to raise $250,000, and with that, we want to basically fund or sponsor 10 companies to come here. These are going to end up, working at some of the co-working spaces, maybe come present their company at a big conference, whatever it is. So different models for different stage companies. But the idea really is we want to build this pipeline of companies coming here. I know you guys did it with Mexico. Latin America, that's the one I judged, but South Korea. So all we're trying to do is take that model of what you guys are doing and entities are doing with different countries and just focus on the Middle East because, as you know, in my 9 months of crazy traveling, I have come across these amazing entrepreneurs who are completely disconnected. To them, Silicon Valley or even this opportunity here is like a fairy tale or Hollywood. It's not even real. So. I know you guys are kind of the doers and like in the thick of things. It's not that you're a super conglomerate. You're still a small team, right? I mean, 20, 25 people?
18.
18. Okay, cool.
And 9 different nationalities.
9 different nationalities.
It's truly global.
But I know you guys are doing like crazy amounts of projects, and that's just super cool. And I know talk about the business model a little bit because I know you ended up raising some venture money, is that correct? Along the way, what was that decision like? And are you happy with it? I know you guys are very successful, but talk about that a little bit for an entity like this to raise money and then to build a bigger business. So
sure.
That's interesting too.
In the early days of YouNoodle in 2007, we raised some money with that initial project, and the investors were Peter Thiel, Max Levchin Founders Fund, and Charles Lowe, a Korean investor, Frank Levinson as well, and Lars Kolind. So that was the group of investors throughout the history of YouNoodle that had participated. When we split into 2 companies in 2010, we actually took a little bit of funding, but I would almost qualify us as a bootstrapping company because it was just nominal amounts of money to help with the transition. But we were making revenue already, and we broke even some time ago, so we're profitable today.
Awesome.
The business model that we are using is in licensing the platform, Podium. But also we engage with corporations mostly in running these campaigns that will help them build on products that they already have.
Sure.
So let's say you have an API or a service that you can offer to startups. We work with the startup community to make that engagement meaningful.
Interesting.
And that has a price tag.
And how many of these are you doing? Like, I know it's hundreds, right?
Yeah.
Hundreds, right? Literally.
Yeah.
I saw a stat somewhere, and it's pretty crazy. So, let's talk about a couple funny stories. So, Torsten and I met actually at a party at your office where Gunnar and I played beer pong. And then we didn't actually meet again until I met with Gunnar about 9 months ago when this whole PITME idea really was born, like a week before on a road trip to LA.
Yeah, you're right. It was wild.
I had heard of YouNoodle as the LinkedIn for entrepreneurs. And then, come full circle, all of a sudden, then I meet Rebecca, and Rebecca and I have a funny interaction. Rebecca thinks I'm crazy, which is a compliment, I think. And so, for a while, she was introducing me. This is Nima. He's really crazy. And I actually appreciate that, honestly, because you know what, you have to be a little crazy. And when you tell me I'm crazy, and Dave McClure says I'm crazy, those are compliments, honestly, because you have to think crazy, think big, and really just think outside the box, because otherwise you're just another someone doing the same old thing. So,
in fact, I will say, when Torsten introduced me to you, and he was talking, this guy is amazing, crazy.
See?
But then he said, there's probably very few people that you would respect for the level of crazy that they have, because I don't get impressed by crazy, right? But he was like, this guy is going to rock your world. You're going to be very impressed by the level of crazy. So it was
that's funny.
Outstanding level.
Thank you, Torsten. Now, the funny part about that is that crazy 9 months ago has changed 4 times, right? Yeah. And you and I have had brainstorming sessions around what I should do, what am I going to do, and then finally now all of a sudden I'm like, wait a second, this is it, So it took a lot of late evenings and digging and soul searching to really even understand, what do I want to be when I grow up? Like, where are my skill sets? Where is the crazy? Where can I control the crazy to the point where it actually brings value and helps make these connections? And literally, I feel like that's my gift, and that's been along the way. That's been the kind of the theme.
And it's actually one of the things that's very different from how projects are conceived here in Silicon Valley versus many other places in the world, that you iterate very, very quickly over ideas. And, a few months later, you figure it out, talk to a few people, it's not really going to work. I've seen a lot of projects that come out of my home country, Denmark, but also other places where people wait too long and they keep working on something that really was never going to work. I think that quick iteration, you have to be a little crazy in order to be, okay, I'm going all in on this now, and 2 months later, I changed it around completely because it didn't work. I think that is one of the several keys to why we do build amazing companies very quickly.
It is embarrassing a little bit sometimes. Sometimes it's a little embarrassing, I have to admit. But I'm a all-in kind of guy, and you know what? Like, that's the only way I know how. And so if I've decided to do something, whether I end up changing my mind later or not, I'm going to go in 5th gear and floor it. But ultimately, now all of a sudden we've got this platform. We're allowing this communication, and I think you guys have this really amazing community behind what you're doing, and that to me is really the core of what we're all trying to do, connecting the world from different continents, different backgrounds, different skill sets, and all of a sudden you're solving challenges for corporations, you're basically building ecosystems in countries. And then yet, you're still able to do, these competitions for incubators, accelerators, and all that. And that's kind of like, oh, we do that too, Like that's the little bonus on the side.
It's also a kindred spirit effort to what we do, in that, just as how you described the way we met and the way I met with Torsten, there's a lot of serendipity and luck in getting to know the right people. And our platform emulates that process, in that we increase the number of interactions that you'll have as an entrepreneur anywhere. If you be in Dubai and meet as many entrepreneurs as you could possibly meet in Silicon Valley. And that's really the spirit of enabling these connections that could be helpful to your life and to your business.
Okay, so 2 things I want to talk to you about before we do the story. The wall of tasks. Literally one of my favorite things I've ever seen. Tell me about that. We're going to put a picture up on the website later that shows you what the wall of tasks is. But give me your description, because literally when I came into the office and I saw that, I'm like, holy guacamole, that's the coolest thing ever, and it actually works, right? You guys use it, so
yeah. So
please.
let me explain how it works, and again, you'll see a picture about how this looks. So we have a big wall in our office of Post-it notes.
Yep.
And basically, each week we meet for an hour, the entire team, and we put up 3 notes for each person on the team. So we're not the ones writing them; they have to write them themselves. Mm-hmm. So you're telling the rest of the team, what are you working on this week? So it has to be something that's doable, and something you can come back next week and say, check, I did this, and maybe you didn't do the last thing, but that's okay. It's a startup, things change, but it's a way for us to be able to let everyone know what's going on and visualize this to any visitor coming to the office like you about this is right now what's going on in the company, and it's just basically colored Post-it notes everywhere.
How many were up that time when I came by? Like
probably about
500? 400?
Yeah. No,
almost
probably
a year worth of.
I mean,
probably
that's
about
crazy,
500,
right? A team of 18 people with a year's worth of tasks flat out on a wall in like color-coded Post-its.
Exactly.
I have to say, if you come to my house, I have 2 walls of tasks now for different projects on my wall, and my wife literally thinks, she's like, okay, where did this come from? But I tell her about it all the time. But no, the point is that, sometimes funny things work, right? I think, you're motivating your team to push the envelope. You're holding them accountable.
Yeah.
I think organically these ideas kind of start meshing, and then people say, hey, you need help with this, I'm helping you with this. But that's what this is. That's what a startup is. And we talk about, one day you're CTO or CEO, and the next day you're chief janitor and chief whatever, and that's what this is. You have to be able to constantly be aware of what everybody else is doing on the team, and collaborate and inspire and push the envelope. And again, there's no rule like guideline.
No,
there's no book that says today we have to do this. Yeah, you can set some milestones or guidelines of things you want to accomplish. But that's, I think, what makes YouNoodle kind of interesting, is that you have this team that's collaborating and pushing the envelope. And I actually, along the way, have thought of all these other ideas of like what we could do with YouNoodle. But what we want to do to start with, we want to do this competition for the Middle East. So any help you guys can give on that, and I know you guys are super busy, but that would be one. And then phase 2, we'd love to do the accelerator incubator program that you guys did with Latin America.
Yeah, when do you finish the competition? When do you think you'll bring them?
So it's kind of tied to how long it takes to raise the money on Indiegogo. So we just interviewed Danae, who's going to help us, co-founder Indiegogo, and we have a network that we're going to kind of tap. Look, if we can raise the money in a month, then we should have the companies here in 3 months. But I would say, late summer, early fall. And then we're going to do an event and, have a showcase of some of these companies. So we'd love to have you guys involved, and either as far as judging or whatever it is that you guys do best, because you do that very, very well. So, lessons to stories. Who wants to go first?
I was going to actually add a story or an example of this fun that you need to have in any startup. And that was totally random last week. Where we always have our weekly product meetings besides this wall of tasks, right? We have weekly about each of our products, and the space where we usually meet were taken by other people. Was it your team? I don't remember, but somebody else was there. So we have a ping pong table, and we walked into that room, and we decided to do a product meeting standing up while playing round the table Berlin-style ping pong.
That's how we play at your party. That's the first time, yeah.
Exactly. So the way it worked was that the entire engineering team was like lining up on either end of the table, and we started playing, and whoever was out first had to give their update about what they had done on the product and what they asked for. And we kind of played until we were done, and the whole thing took maybe half an hour. It was because it's super fast, and everyone's standing up. You're just waiting because you want to go with the next shot, so no one is talking beyond what they should talk about. And it was totally random. It was just because the space that we were usually in was occupied. And then, somebody suggested that. We laughed, but then we started doing it. It's very, very startup-y.
I was like state champion when I was 11 in Germany. So if you ever want to...
So
I do remember.
The meeting would have lasted longer had you been there.
Yeah, seriously. Would have gone last. Well, that's probably because I wouldn't have done the work or had forgotten or something. But anyway, all right, lesson 2 stories. Who wants to go first? You kind of already told your story.
Let me finish that.
Yeah.
Because I think it's very important when you choose your co-founder and the founding team for your startup that you choose the right people and for the right reasons. So I met him through a conference, and he was a painful customer in that he had a lot of things that he wanted us to improve. In the end, I ended up traveling to Denmark, to his hometown. I'm meeting with him there just to close the deal, and he came with a list of 6 pages worth of improvements that he wanted to see on our platform. I went through them with him, and I said, you know what, you're right about all of these things.
Now get to work.
Now you come to Silicon Valley. And obviously he had a different offer, so we had to be very persuasive in getting him to come and fix it. But to me, that was not only the fact that he was smart and technical, but it was a very different way of thinking about the world that I had. For me, the world is expansive. I always start new things, and I go broad a lot, all the time. He was about getting to the details and really synthesizing and converging into something. And in looking at co-founders, for me, that was very necessary. I'm crazy. I need somebody who has to be in charge of the details and actually operate things. And also conceptually, not only expand with new ideas, but be able to identify and select the best ideas out of the batch. And whenever people are starting to look for those co-founders, those are really, really important qualities in knowing what type of person you are, expansive or converging, and finding the opposite.
Complementary.
To join the team.
So by the way, Mark Susher says the personality that I think you and I fall into, it's called a shaper. You have amazing visions, you have amazing ideas, you can shape them to be able to explain or showcase what it's supposed to look like, and then you have to hand it off because you can't actually implement all the minor details. And so that's how my brain works too. And you and I are a lot alike in that sense because we are kind of visionaries and we think crazy, but that's what's fun. I think for you, Torsten, like that getting in and boom, 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 like in the.
I'm the engineer. I love building the machine. It's very different work environment as well. Like I need focus and I need quiet to build something. I need to just not get any input from anybody, and it's just you have to dream out something about how it will work and also build it afterwards. You need an extreme level of focus and commitment. But it's interesting when you mention that I also feel like I've learned a lot about the sides that are not natural to me. You've
gotten better. You're much more social now.
Because thank you.
No, honestly,
it's absolutely true. Like engineers are introvert by nature, and the fact that we start thinking about so maybe it's not enough for me just to go and build it. I need to actually talk to people before to figure out is this the right solution.
Totally.
And I also come out with, I think, more crazy ideas now that I bring to you. And we've even had cases where I come with something and say, hey, wouldn't it be awesome if we build this? And Rebecca's the one saying, hang on, this is probably not a good idea. Like, what happened? So I think a startup is such an intense experience that you do really develop yourself a lot.
And the corollary of that is that opposites obviously don't like each other in general, right? So
but they also attract.
They attract as well, but in working with each other, you have to find that right balance of somebody that you like to work with and you have the same value system and you're opposites in terms of skills. And that's very difficult to find because oftentimes you'll find opposites that you hate and you can't work with.
I know. I have been through that and I've learned that through many painful lessons. All right, Torsten, so it's your turn. We have our board. These are the topics that are left this week. Have you looked at these yet?
Yeah.
Pick a good one. Come on.
Yeah, I know.
I want to hear a good story.
Remember, I'm the engineer. I'm not the crazy one.
You know what? Rebecca, you were going to talk about artificial deadlines. So if we have time, we'll get to that. Otherwise, Torsten...
Do you want to do that first while I think about which one it is?
Okay. Artificial deadline. One of my favorite things in the world because that's the only way things move forward.
So when I first was trying to push Podium, it was in the early days of YouNoodle, I had a really aggressive deadline. And I knew that it was artificial. I was one of the co-founders. I knew that, we could change it any time. But somehow, the fact that you have committed yourself in public about some outcome to happen before a certain deadline, it makes you go crazy. It makes you hold into it. So I remember it was like Sunday afternoon at something like 8 or 9 p.m. and I was calling people to their cell phones. And at some point somebody said, Rebecca, Like, I respect you and everything, but it's Sunday, it's a holiday, I'm about to spend time with the family. What's going on? And that's when I told him I have a deadline.
We have to launch tomorrow. And
but you know what?
Totally.
Even your partners and clients will understand the nature of a deadline, even if it's artificial, and they will work with you. So I'm a huge proponent of setting deadlines and sticking to them and making people accountable on those.
Well, and what happens is that you end up becoming kind of a daredevil in your mind. You're like, can I pull this off in like 10 days? And I mean, you guys have a team, but for me, like, sometimes I'm like, okay, look, I'm going to really push the envelope here, and I'm going to set this deadline, and I'm just going to commit something. Like you said, make a commitment to somebody, and then just artificially really force myself. And then I noticed the more people I then tie to this artificial deadline, the more likely it's actually that we actually meet that deadline.
And I love that story because YouNoodle is about competitions, and competitions are the biggest excuses for artificial deadlines out there. You're telling, by this date, you have to have a solution. And what happens is that you actually eliminate all of the 20% of improvements that you don't have to do, and you just focus on the basics, and you get it done because there's a deadline. And I love that we are actually creating excuses for people to get things done.
No, and look, I mean, I run into people who've been talking about the same idea or same concept for the last year or two, and we've had multiple conversations about how to move this thing forward. I'm like, do this, try this, blah, blah. And then, like, they come back, like, 6 months later, I'm like, hey, did you try any of that? No, but this and that and that. I'm like, you know what, like, you need to force yourself to move this thing forward, and no one's going to come and say, hey, Rebecca, can you make sure that this happens? No, all of a sudden you hold yourself accountable, and that's part of this artificial deadline thing is that when you have a job and you clock in and clock out, you might have tasks or jobs that you are responsible for, but now all of a sudden you are part of a team that relies on you, and if you say that this needs to be done March 30th for whatever reason, you're going to try to do what you can to input and make that happen, but now you have to inspire people and motivate people to say, we have this deadline, and they may not know the answer or the reason why, but you have to be a leader, and being a CEO, you have to inspire people to say, we have a deadline that makes us better and makes us stronger, and our company a better company, which then helps us grow. So artificial deadlines, super important. Adeo used to talk about them day in, day out. So I am a big fan of artificial deadlines. All right, Torsten, your turn.
All right, we talked about it earlier, but the chief janitorial janitor.
Yes. Chief.
I like it because it's not obvious. If you're not in a startup, you don't think about the fact that you have to do everything yourself. Everything yourself. So in the range of things that I have done, at least for various occasions, is going through our accounts and linking every single receipt, every single month, to every single statement line on every credit card that the company has had or bank account the company has had, and going out to less organized people and getting receipts that they didn't submit.
Sure.
So as an example, right? Then there are things like literally cleaning the bathroom before an important event. Yes, that has happened because, we're entrepreneurs and it gets a little messy at times.
Yeah.
I've cleaned the front, the street in front of our building on the day where we were having a big event to make sure that it didn't look like most of San Francisco does, which is a little messy.
Totally.
And we had a lot of people over.
Fine.
And there's just numerous other little things that you do. Cleaned up after other people on their desks or whatever it takes in order for you to look right for this investor coming in or this event happening or
Apparently, I mean, you have an image that you're projecting, and one of the things I think that's really predominant in the Middle East, people think, I can hire a consultant or I can outsource it. That doesn't work. You know what I mean? I always say consultants are kind of the antichrist of startups, because basically I don't think there's really much a consultant can help you with, unless it's something super technical or something, but that you can't do yourself, or that you shouldn't do, A, because of the experience, B, you shouldn't burn through cash hiring someone at $100 or $200 an hour. But and maybe that includes a cleaning lady that comes and cleans the bathroom. Sometimes you got to get down dirty and scrub the toilets.
Exactly. Of course, we got all of this more or less organized now, but in the early phases, you just need to. No one else is doing it but you. So until you organize it and get somebody to do stuff, or it always ends at you. And you never think about that the first time you start a company, about how many little things that you have to do that are not core to the strategy or building the product or whatever. It's how it is Chief Janitor.
Honestly, that list gets longer and longer as you go. Because like all these like holes and gaps start appearing, and you have to plug holes, because that's, if you don't do it, maybe Rebecca does it sometimes, but obviously she's busy as well. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for making the time. I know you're super, super busy. Where are you off to?
So next week we're going to retreat. Later this week, we're going to LA.
Okay.
So
Cool. And then you're off to Rio for the Kaufman thing, like everybody else. I'll be in Beirut.
Very exciting.
But
I wish I could make it to Beirut. That sounds amazing.
So May, June-ish is going to be Dubai, and we'd love to have you guys there. We've talked to Omar already. So we've got a couple T-shirts for you. I hope they're the right size.
thank you.
And Torsten, I don't think you're large, but I think you already have one anyway, right?
I'll go to the gym and make sure I get
Yeah, right. All right, guys.
Thank you so much for having us over for tea. Appreciate it.
Torsten, Rebecca, thank you so much for
Good
coming.
luck.
That was it. Again, Torsten and Rebecca from YouNoodle, and stay tuned for our podium campaign to be launched soon. If you've got a business that you want to submit to our competition to get sponsorship to come here, instructions will follow shortly. Peace.